הניסים ועל הברכן ועל הגבורות ועל התשועות ועל הנפלאות, על הניסים ועל הברכן ועל הגבורות ועל התשועות ועל הנפלאות שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה, בזמן הזה שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה.
Welcome to Jewish Live, a program presented in cooperation with the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York. I'm your host, Stewart Ain. Every week, we present programs of particular interest to the Jewish community. And today, my guests are Rabbi Sam Kieffer and his wife, Melinda Kieffer. And we're going to be speaking about what happened on October 7th. They were in Israel at the time, in Jerusalem, and they've got quite a story to tell, not only about what happened on October 7th, but what they've been doing since October 7th. So welcome to the program, both of you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Melinda, you were telling us earlier about the experience. October 7th comes, it's about 6:30, 6:45 in the morning. And what happens?
So we were getting dressed to go to Shul, to synagogue services for Shabbat and Simchat Torah. We heard the siren go off, which we usually only hear on Holocaust Remembrance Day. And I will admit that I was frozen. I didn't move. My husband immediately said, let's go to our safe room. Our apartment has a safe room, all new construction does. And we stood there and we heard at least 4 sirens that went off, I would say over 20 minutes. We heard a lot of loud booms, which meant that the Iron Dome was connecting with the rockets and that the rockets were fairly close to our neighborhood because it was so loud. We've never really lived through a war, so this was new for us. And we spent the rest of that day, our daughter had come over, gave us some information, and then we have a next door neighbor whose husband was immediately called up to Miluim. They felt reserves, they filled us in with more information. And we were stunned like everybody else. I think we were numb. And after Shabbat, we watched more of the news. And if you recall, we didn't have a lot of news, what was coming in. And what was coming in was very scary. And we spent most of Sunday glued to the news crying, being very afraid.
What were you hearing? What were you? We were watching I-24 here in the States. So that's out of Tel Aviv, and they had people right on the front lines. But what were you hearing in Israel? 13?
So first of all, that's a very good station, I-24, but we listen to Israeli news. And
right,
there's
channel 13?
12, 11, 12, 13, and 14.
Okay.
And they were all pretty much saying the same thing, that Hamas had broken through the fence with a tractor. And then slowly the videotapes that Hamas had taken, they had put up on social media. So we're seeing the film that they took. And by the way, one of the reporters that was reporting, I believe through Reuters and AP, was embedded with Hamas. And so we already began to realize that their reporting was not so neutral.
Well, was it a reporter or was it a photographer?
A photographer, I'm sorry, you were correct.
Yes,
correct.
They had a number of photographers with them.
We were stunned. I have to say that we were never diagnosed as being in shock, but I assume we were in shock. We could barely talk, we hardly ate, and we just sat there. We would check in we have a lot of family and a lot of friends. We were all just texting or speaking with each other, but we were stunned. And so that was Sunday. We spent most of the day we didn't leave, crying. I will admit, crying and being very scared. Monday morning.
Well, just give me back up for a second. Could you believe it? I mean,
no.
The Israeli military is noted for, where were they?
The whole question of who was where and who wasn't is something that the whole country has understood from that moment on, is a question that is worthy of being asked, but not yet. The priority is, let's get this war going and let's prepare properly and let's do what has to be done. The political shortfalls and ramifications are all for later time.
We have
Yes.
to just get through each day.
And to the country's credit, it understood what has to be the priority. The priority is to fight for our lives and win this war.
And I would say, except for the political pundits on TV, and that is their job to analyze and to predict, the rest of us feel like we need to get through today.
Yes,
And
yes.
those questions will still be valid 6 months from now, a year from now, whenever.
And what I found remarkable was that the group that was leading the the judicial reform, they galvanized
Yes.
in seconds and became, I mean, it was just war. They went into war mode. It was incredible.
The headlines of October 5th were quite different from the ones of October 8th, the day before and the day after. And as of the day after, you never heard about judicial reform again. There were no more demonstrations because the whole country came together. And again, to the credit of the population, the masses, they understood what needs to be done, and they have ever since.
But it's not only the leaders of the anti-judicial reform. The country has come together in a way, right and left, secular and religious, that in all the years we've been to Israel, we have never seen this in our lives. The
You guys
unity.
You made Aliyah when?
10 years ago.
10 years ago, yeah,
10
10 years ago. We have never seen this kind of unity. When we flew in Sunday night, there was a Haredi Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox man whose seat on our El Al plane was next to a young girl wearing a tank top. He did not say, I need to have my seat moved. She did not say anything. That it's a new Israel and a terrible price to pay, but this is the reality that we care about each other, we love each other, we want to help each other.
And also the fact that the blood bank, talk about that.
Oh, yes, okay.
The blood bank was announced that in day one that they were going to need, who knew how much, but a big supply of blood. And the response of the masses was instantaneous. They filled the facility that was announced, and then they moved to a bigger one the next day, and that was filled. And by the end of that second day of blood collection, they announced they have more than they need and more than they could anticipate. Unbelievable.
My plan was to give blood on Wednesday, and on Tuesday morning, they announced we don't need any more blood anywhere in the country. I mean, that's absurd to think about. Our oldest granddaughter, who's 18, it's the first time she ever gave blood in her life. The waiting time was 7 hours. You could actually take a ticket and leave and come back, which she did. And it actually took 9 hours, but she was determined to give blood for the first time in her life and felt very proud to be able to do that.
And that happened all over the country.
So what happened from Shabbat through Sunday night is both of us are blessed with very large families in America and a very large group of friends. We started getting many phone calls, text messages, emails. Are you okay? What's going on? You have to update us. And as I said, I think that we were both in shock. I emotionally and physically could not get myself to answer any of them. And so now our siblings and others are writing, you must answer me. You must tell us what's going on. And we want to send you money. So I said to Sam, by Monday, we have to do something. Let's do this thing called Facebook Live. We'll do it once. We'll put it on that we're going to answer all of their questions as much as we can, and we won't do this again. Okay. And we didn't do it on Tuesday because we thought we did it. And then we got more phone calls. Where are you? Are you in a bomb shelter? Why didn't you answer? And then it became apparent that our family and friends wanted us to do this often. So from October 9th until the first night of Hanukkah, we did it every night from Sunday to Thursday. Then we felt we needed a break for ourselves as much as to spend time with our grandchildren and children in Israel. So we announced we wouldn't do it over Hanukkah and we would regroup ourselves. And then since the end of Hanukkah, we're now doing it twice a week, Sundays and Wednesdays. And we are not experts in the military. We're not government experts. We're not business experts. Sam is a rabbi. I'm a Jewish educator. We know nothing from war, but we felt that to answer their questions, we could make it personal. And so that's what we've done over the last 96 days. Today's day 96.
So if somebody wants to go on Facebook, how do they do it? What do they, how
They
do they
just
log on?
find my name on Facebook, Melinda, Mishkin, Kieffer. And you don't even have to be my friend. And you can, it's Eastern time, it's 12 o'clock noon on Sundays and Wednesdays. There's no charge. We talk about what we're involved in, which is the next part, that on Monday, we were so sick from watching the news, physically and mentally, that we both said, we cannot do this again. We cannot sit and watch. It was like 9/11. If you watched too much of it, it engulfed you. And at the same time, we now are calling, we have a very large family in Israel. We have a lot of friends. We started texting and calling, how's your son? How's your daughter? And we're hearing very grim things. And we're also hearing that for the reserves, the Army did not have enough. So at first we got very upset. How could the Army not have enough? Well, that led us to find
Enough in
out.
terms of what?
Gear.
Weapons?
Tactical supply. No, not weapons,
All
but
kinds of supplies.
boots, tactical gear, helmets, ceramic vests, straps for weapons, things that we have never thought about in our lives.
And a few weeks into it, the weather started turning colder. So the needs and the requests turned more to like thermal underwear and gloves and thick socks and things of that nature.
So we thought.
Excuse
well,
me,
maybe-
just talk about how many reserves were called up? So give it an idea of what we're talking about.
360,000 were called up on day one.
And if you
And
add
there's
that.
never been that many call-ups in any of Israel's previous wars.
Everybody thinks the Yom Kippur War was the worst war ever. That pales in comparison. And if you count the soldiers that are in the regular army, it's about 500,000
Yes.
that are in the army. So Israel never would have had that amount. It was not in anybody's thinking. We can ask later, why did the intelligence not have that? We don't care right now. That's not going to help us get warm underwear to some soldier to have his, body warmer. We had to deal with that. So how do you do that? Well, we thought we'll go to stores. Well, first of all, we weren't leaving our apartment and many stores were closed. So then we turned to our family and friends that kept saying, we want to send you money. And we said, no, send it to all these great organizations. And I'm sure your viewers know all the great iconic Israel organizations. Send it to them. They go, we'll send it to them, but we want to send it to you because maybe you'll meet somebody. Maybe you'll find somebody. So I said to Sam, all right, so maybe we'll get $500. He said, maybe we'll get $1,000. But by the end of that week, it was probably 10 times that. Now we have significant funds. We have to be responsible. What are we going to do? So that's how
we basically agreed that we would think of recipients in 3 categories. One was military personnel, whatever they needed that we could supply, that was legal to supply, that was legitimate and available, and we could get to them. Those are all questions we had to answer. That would be one category.
without putting danger to ourselves. We're not
Right.
going to drive to Gaza.
A second category would be the 120,000 people who were evacuated from their homes by the government because they were too close to either the Gaza Strip in the south or South Lebanon in the north. 120,000 people uprooted from their homes, 120,000 refugees in our own country. And we had to think about them. And the third category was the helpers who are helping others and who they themselves needed help. So we kind of thought of where we could do things and that be productive and effective in all 3 categories.
But then we also had some incredible relatives and friends in America who would send us a message, keep doing what you're doing. Don't worry about the money. We're going to help you. So don't say no to anything that you can do. Well, again, we have never done this in our lives. We're not fundraisers. We're not into emergency planning. And it turns out, I do have to say, we are not the only ones doing this. We are very proud of so many people we know that have turned to their own communities where they used to live, their own circle. So we are one of many, many groups. We're not the only ones, and I don't want
Are the
that to-
groups working with each other? Are you learning from each
Not
other?
They're all-
necessarily, well, we talk to each
They're all
other.
independent.
You know, we all know that we needed to get thermal underwear. Then the next problem, so, okay, so many of the stores were closed because the owners were in Miluim.
Sure.
School was closed for 3 weeks. The malls were closed. How do we get the things? So then we realized, oh, we can order on Amazon. Free shipping if it's over a certain amount and under a certain amount. Except Amazon stopped the shipping a month earlier. Nothing to do with the war. We don't know why. It was a business decision. All right, we'll pay for the shipping. Okay, except the Amazon drivers were called up to Miluim. And so even though an Amazon
Reserves.
had
Called
to
it
take
reserve.
8 days, they were telling us now it could take 3 to 6 weeks. Well, we can't wait 3 to 6 weeks if we need thermal underwear now. So then these incredible angels, that's the only word that I can use for them. Groups of rabbis, many of whom we don't know, started announcing that they're going to come to Israel with duffel bags. And we will come to Israel for 3 days, 4 days. This is the hotel we're staying at. If you have a need, let us know. So we showed up. We made a lot of new friends right away. And the conversation, there's an underbelly of crazy humor going on. How I would walk up to men and say, "You got underwear?"
Thermal underwear, of course.
Yeah. What's your underwear situation? Okay.
Uh-huh.
And so we were able to get many supplies that way. And then the group started coming with duffel bags. Okay. There was a problem because at customs in Israel, they want to make sure that you're not bringing in something that could be a pop-up store that would hurt the mom and pop stores. That eventually got settled, but each one of these steps was another barricade that we had to get over. I would say by mid-November, the stores started getting restocked, but the problem is that there's only 3 airlines flying into Israel: El Al,
Yeah.
Abu Dhabi Airways, and Ethiopia Airways. Amazon is not sending planes. So we can't get the Amazon things directly from Amazon, and they are not really getting the supplies they need. So it was almost like COVID when we heard about the supply chain issues, although this was political, you know, that there were no airlines coming here. And I have to say, as a country, I think we all felt very isolated. We knew that there was love and support from Jews around the world, but how do we get your help? So many of us would talk about, okay, this strategy, that strategy. And then it took a little bit more time. We ended up meeting over the phone. I've never met them in person. The importers of helmets and ceramic vests and weapon straps and military grade boots. And much of this was coming from Belgium on private planes.
Wow.
Okay, so we're not buying hundreds of thousands of pieces, but if you pool it all together, it was becoming that way.
Who is providing the planes? Who is the importers? Were doing it themselves?
Not sure.
Yeah, we don't know.
We also know, don't ask too many questions. We had to learn that. Like,
We also know that there's certain military pieces of equipment that, you know, from our standpoint, a boot is a boot is a boot. But from the military standpoint, the boot depends on what branch of the armed forces they're in.
what tests they're doing.
Special forces is different than regular forces, et cetera,
Yes.
et cetera. The less we knew, the better, other than the fact that if we got a request for a certain kind of boot, we owed it to them to provide that and only that, and not
Yeah.
one that was more
Yeah,
convenient
we
for
never
us.
went shopping. They had to tell us
So
exactly what they
every
wanted.
case was different, and we try to handle each one individually.
But then we got a little
We
worried.
learned that you can do a great mitzvah with something as simple as pizza. So the very first 2-3 days of the war, we provided 30 pizza pies to a youth group of teenagers who their school was closed. They showed up at 7 a.m. till midnight to do volunteer work. And because they're teenagers, they didn't take into account providing food for themselves. So by late evening, they were hungry. We brought over 30 pies, and they were happy campers. 2 days later, we did the same thing for nurses at one of the hospitals in Jerusalem. And they were thrilled because they're all doing 2 and 3 shifts because everybody else is in the reserves.
And on that, I just want to add that when we brought the pizza into this particular unit at Shaare Tzedek Hospital,
Yes.
like all hospitals in Israel, they treat Arabs as patients equally, and there are Arabs on staff.
Doctors,
And
nurses,
When
everything.
we brought the pizza into the room where they're gonna have their pizza party, there's an Arab woman in a full hijab, and I'm just thinking, is she uncomfortable? Is she embarrassed? Is she gonna be part of this? And we asked, could we take a picture with all of you together? And she stood in the back. And one of the other nurses pushed her forward and said, come on, get closer, be in the picture with us. It's the elephant in the room that we can't talk about right now because it's not the right time. But I could only wonder, what is she thinking about this? So there's a lot of unanswered questions that we know. At the same time, we wondered, are we breaking any laws? Are we allowed to buy military gear? And because there was a law that no soldier was ever allowed to take anything from a civilian. But we're not dealing with soldiers, we're dealing with officers. So I asked one of them, I said, this is okay, are we breaking the law? He goes, if you go to jail, I'll be there with you. I go, well, that's not comforting. He goes,
That was pretty good.
you'll be fine. And
You
so
also
we
went to you also went to the hotels, the displaced people.
Yes.
I forget what the number is now. Somebody said it's more than 500,000, right? Is that
Well,
right?
120,000 in Jerusalem alone.
They're also in Eilat,
They're
the
in
Dead Sea.
But also
Tiberias,
in a lot, right? and
Lot, Dead Sea.
everybody in the north was evacuated, of course, the
Yes.
south.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, I mean, we're talking about a lot of people living in hotels, living in.
And
So
it's
we,
not-
wherever.
we
yes, not a
decided,
resort.
we
It's-
decided we can't take care of all 120,000 in Jerusalem, but we can do one hotel and hope other groups will take care of the others. So we walked into a particular hotel, or just walked into the lobby and walked up to people who were shell-shocked and simply said, welcome, Bruchim Habaim, Anachnu miYerushalayim, we're from here in Jerusalem. We hope you'll feel at home here.
Can we help you with anything
That
right
started a
now?
whole relationship.
Right.
Three of the families in particular, we became
They're like
very
family.
close with. And we've invited each other to family events.
So we said to her, is there anything we can help you with right now? We know you've got to be specific. And she goes, right now, we need warm pajamas. When we were evacuated, there was no time to really grab clothes. It's the coldest night of the year. Can you get us warm pajamas?
We put them in the car, drove to
We said, come with us.
particular clothing store,
We bought out all their pajamas.
stocked them up and brought them back to the hotel.
Okay, and,
They had warm tushies that night.
so that's how it started. And, then as we got to know them a little bit better, we would say to them, do you want to tell us about your October 7th? That's the phrase that's used, not
Yes.
your October 7th.
Yes.
And they have told us blood-curdling stories that happened with their kids standing listening. And I said to one of them, is it okay that your kids are here? She said, our kids were there with us.
They
Why
lived
can't they
through
hear
it.
it
They
now?
lived
Sure.
through it.
So,
Sure.
you know, the level of trauma, stress, anxiety, it's throughout. But what I do want your viewers to hear is that in Israel, we are strong. Yes, there is crying. There's crying at funerals and there is crying in hospitals. And I think it took about 2 weeks for us to shake it off. And we're doing this because of the Army. They are sending out hysterically funny videos of them doing like the craziest things. They are worried about our morale. And so Sam and I say, well, we can't feel scared or sorry or sad. If these guys who are laying their lives down for us can act like this, get it together. And so
Right.
we've learned to try not to cry ever.
There's no question the soldiers have strengthened us,
No question.
and they're very precious. They're so young, most of them, and yet so unbelievably dedicated.
So when we send the boots or the helmets or whatever that we do, and it's a whole interesting process, how it gets from the supplier to Gaza or up north, we don't do that. We know that is beyond what we should be doing.
But
That
we
is not.
arrange for it, but we don't do it.
Yeah, but the Army helps a lot. And it's really interesting how it just cross-sects into Israeli society, and it's seamless between the Army and civilians.
We include a note, usually with the supplies or whatever the
Yes.
object is, And the note simply says, this is from your many friends in North America who don't know you, but who love you.
And we write it in Hebrew and English, and they say, what? And then we ask the officer, who's the one that we made contact with, only if you have time, can you just send a picture or a video of the stuff that we gave them so we can show our donors? And it never occurred to me that they were going to be hysterically funny. So they could be dancing with the boots on their hands. We had a project for Hanukkah. We called it Operation Sufganiyot. Sufganiyot are Israeli donuts. We purchased 1,800 sufganiyot that were delivered throughout the South. And there were boxes of 25. I still remember this, how we packed a truck. And when we got there, we said to the driver, can you just try to take a couple pictures or videos? They were videos. They were dancing with the trays of sufganiyot like they were the Torah and Simchat Torah. There was a circle around them. And the fact that they can have this humor means that we have to be strong for them and for each other. And that's one of the lessons we never pictured that would come out of this. We just met before we were talking to you with somebody else. And when we first met them and she walked in the room and she knew our story, she burst out into tears. And she goes, but you're not crying. I said, I'm done crying. We've done a lot of crying. We have to move forward. All of us, and I would say that's for Jews in America dealing with anti-Semitism, Jews around the world, we have to be strong. This is not the Shoah of the 40s. We can't say we didn't know. We do know.
And we do have an army this time.
And we all have to stand up and we all have to do whatever we can do. There's no excuses. He has a 92-year-old aunt who's got her own volunteer projects that she's working on.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Really? What is she doing?
She lives in an old age home. And they're knitting woolen caps, those that can knit. Others are writing letters of love to put into each cap. They're wrapping them with ribbons. She also wants cookies baked to give them cookies. They're doing that. She said, I can't go pick fruit.
She's like the cheerleader of her home.
Right.
Wow.
And one of them was complaining that there wasn't enough hot water for the tea as they're working. And she told us that she lost patience. She said, do the soldiers have hot water in Gaza? Get over it. You know, and it's strengthening.
She is our inspiration in many ways.
And the whole
Wow.
country is like this, the love of each person. And when groups come, these missions come, oh my gosh, they're welcomed like the biggest VIPs there ever were. I don't know if you know the story about the cowboys that came. Do you know about the cowboys?
Oh, who
Thank
did
God
the,
Cowboys,
the-
they're not
for
Jewish.
the fields? Yes.
Yes,
work in the
they were
field,
here for
yes.
2 months. They were in Israel for 2
From
months.
Montana, Oklahoma, I mean, places
Yes.
that don't have any Jews, but they were wonderful
Yeah, they really made a huge difference.
and impressive
Yes.
hats too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is, it's remarkable. Now, is there an email or people want to get in touch with you or what's the address? How do people send?
So the best way is to reach me on Facebook, Melinda, Michigan, Kieffer. Tell me that, you know, you want to be part, you could through Facebook Messenger. We accept our funds through Venmo, that we found that to be the safest platform that we could find. And then I send to each person, it's a lot of work, but it's only the 2 of us doing these things. And then I send out our account information and people send us funds that way.
Tremendous, tremendous.
Very
You have any
simple.
idea in the 96 days, how much you've been able to raise?
He's the
Yeah,
banker, I'm the shopper.
It's around the area of $100,000.
Not that we
Wow.
have it. It goes out as soon as,
It
Goes
comes
out,
in
sure. Yeah, yeah. Totally.
150, 36.
we have
And
5,
as soon as we have enough to cover a project, we pay for
We
it, we
take
get
it.
it done.
we have
Wow.
5 requests
Most
right now.
average projects are requested and done within 48 hours.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we thank you so much. Good luck. And you've got our address, our viewers have the address. Mr. Kieffer and Sam, Rabbi Sam Kieffer, thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you,
you.
Stewart.
The
And
best
we're gonna
way.
end the way we always end. Yisrael Chai.
I'm Yisrael Chai, people of Israel live. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
This has
you.
been Jewish Life. My name is Stewart Ain. Until next week, have a good one.